Good morning, guys. We're going to get started like just a minute early. I know there's a lot of people popping on. We're going to do a connection power hour today. So gear up. These ones take a little bit of introspection. So like just have a piece of paper, pen, super simple. We're going to bring it all together at the end and do some like real work. But this first part of it is really to help you, I don't want to say get connected, but just understand the connection piece of it. Have any of you guys ever done one of my connection power hours before? Okay. If you have, then you're probably like, I already know what's coming. If you haven't, then this will be a new experience for you. So I like to preface this power hour because this was like the hardest part of coaching for me, but also like the easiest part. This is like, it was really challenging for me to connect with other people. It was really easy to help other people connect with me. That's what I mean by that. And maybe some of you guys relate, and this could be like, I'm really good at listening to people. I'm really good at at being who they need me to be. I'm really good at like supporting people, but like, I don't really let other people do that for me, right? Like it's kind of that thing. So connection is something that I had to learn and something I felt like I had to learn because in this business, all you guys see all the time is teams that are connected, right? Like we're all best friends. We're all on the beach. We're all in matching workout gear. Like there was just this level of like, connection, right? Like this connective tissue between these people. And I would look at those teams and just be like, I wonder if they're like all really actually friends though. Like that's what was going on in my mind. Like, are they really like connected though? And so it kind of just sparked this journey for a few years there because that piece, it wasn't really missing. I just felt like I was doing it wrong because it was different than it looked everywhere else. That was a mistake. I didn't stay true to myself, right? And two, like I just really needed growth in this area. So if you struggle to like feel like you have free reign to talk to strangers, like reach out to them or DM them or message them. If you struggle with like what to say, how to connect with them, this is a really key piece of it. So as you guys know, I teach networking, connecting, and inviting in that series, in that circle, like in that, what's the word? Why can't I think of it? Words are hard. I can't think of it. In that sequence. There it is. Because if you network, that's how you get people to have a conversation with, right? If you connect with them before you invite them, I'm telling you guys, your invitation is always going to be healthier and stronger. And what I really want to emphasize in this call is that idea of a healthy invitation. Have you guys ever invited somebody and there was zero connection there? It was purely just to get your numbers done, to try and like throw a women a prayer out there. Maybe somebody will write me back and then we can have a conversation. This is why most of the time the invitations don't work, right? Because there's zero connection there. But if you connect with someone first and then make the invitation, how much more likely is that connection and that invitation going to work? Like how much more meaning does that invitation have when it's already been prefaced by connection? Like 100 times more likely for it to work, right? So a lot of coaches, they invite first. They don't do any networking. They invite first and then they try and connect. And I'm going to try and flip that script on you a little bit. Try to connect first and then invite, and you will have a much higher close rate, okay? And a much higher rate of finding people, not only that you really actually want to work with, but that you're like excited to work with. So number one, networking first, right? That's like the dumb stuff. There's lots of YouTube videos on my YouTube if you don't know what that is and haven't done one with me yet. Networking first, then it's the connection piece. So this part is what you would do with all of the people that you just networked with, right? Like you'd go in, you'd dig deep, and you'd connect with them in these kind of ways. And then the invitation process. So we're going to dive into this power hour. And again, this power hour is kind of introspective. So it's going to be a little more quiet. You're going to get some time to like think and write. And then at the end is sort of where it all comes together. So the very, very first analogy that I like to give, and for those of you that are just hopping on, if you guys have done this power hour with me before, specifically, post it in the chat. I want to know, because you're going to be the ones giving all the strength to the people that haven't yet. Okay. So the very number one thing, this is what I love to do on this power hour. I just like to make this really big. And I want you to just take a second and I want you to look around you, like on the call. I want you to look at all of these people that are on here. There's almost 80 people on already. That's awesome, by the way, you guys. That's a great show out. That's good. I want you to just think about something right now, about how many times you have felt completely alone building your business, specifically, like with Beachbody. And like how many times you've kind of had to fight through that anyway. This little community right here, like we have each other hands down, no matter what. I bet you, even if you didn't know another coach on this call and you messaged them and you were like, hi, my name is Jason. I'm having the worst day ever. This is what's going on with my Beachbody business. I don't know what to do. They would be like, tell me what's going on, right? Like what's happening? Who are you and what's happening? But it's because there's this commonality, right? Like we have this connection. And anytime you really feel alone, one of the best things that you can do is really plug in, dive into your community. Like forget about the business, forget about the numbers, forget about everything else. Really, really focus in on the people. It'll bring you back every single time. This is what I try to tell my team is if you ever are getting off your track, full stop, everything. And just focus on the people. Like, I'm just going to talk to someone today about their own struggle with what's going on. And that can be, I'm going to start a conversation in my poll. I'm going to ask a question on my Facebook. I'm going to just try to have conversations today that actually have some meaning, that don't have an end result in my mind, that don't have a goal attached, that don't have an expectation attached. I'm telling you guys, it works. It works. It works every time because all of us signed up because of the people to help other people. And when you aren't doing that, obviously there's going to be frustration, burnout, right? Like lack of energy, lack of excitement, all of those things. So the easiest and best way to do that, to get that back, is to just full stop. I'm just going to talk to people today. Like I'm really going to try and just connect. And it works every time. One thing that I really like to say is, and I want you to think about this really quick, and then we're going to get going. With connection, I like to think about it with our business specifically, like, because you can plug in and not be connected. Can I get a yes? You can like plug in and do the work and like be in la la land and like have zero connection to what you're doing. That is not joyful work. Sometimes that's like networking. That's what you do with networking. That's like meaningless, like I have to do this kind of stuff. With connection, it's not like that. Connection requires, and this is I love this analogy. It's like when you go to Costco and you buy the biggest, like that humongous TV that's there. It's like 80 inches, right? You've saved, you're so excited, you buy it, you somehow manage to find someone with a truck to borrow to drive it to your house, right? Like they get it in your house, they set it up, you plug it in, you sit down on the couch to watch it, you turn it on, it turns on, right? All the lights come on and you go to watch your favorite show. And what happens? There's no connection. Unless you set up your cable, unless it's connected to some higher power in the sky, the satellite, right? Like that TV is not going to work. No matter how many times you turn it on, that show is not going to magically appear just because you want it to. Even if you manifest it to, it's not going to happen, right? It has to be connected to something else. There's another piece there. And that's how I like to look at your business. When you log in to really connect, you have to be connected to some higher thing, something bigger than yourself, right? And that is, today I'm going to focus on someone else and what they're struggling with and what they're going through. And I'm not going to put my stuff into that. I'm just going to focus on them. I'm telling you, it is the most healing process to do that. It's so healing. Okay. So as that's established now, one thing that I really want you to do at this moment is we're going to just find a commonality. This is really key in the connection process. You can do this with every single conversation you're having. Like, where's the commonality here between this person and me? 99% of the time, that very first commonality is, I've been where you are, or we're trying to reach the same goals, healthier, happier, more fulfilled lives. Super simple. Like, that's commonality enough, right? But here with us in our coaching community, we're all on the same plan. Does anyone have a different compensation plan than me? Raise your hand. Let me know if it pays better. Just kidding. It's a joke. We're all on the same plan, but it has to be okay that we're on our own individual path, right? Like, that's the coolest part about coaching. So if you get really stuck in the comparison game, this will help you. This piece of information. We all have the same plan. It has to be okay that we're on a different path to get there. We're not the same path. Okay. And that's the same with every challenger, every single conversation that you have. It's important to understand in those moments when you're coaching, it's not about you, it's about them. And that's the whole point, right? So when you are into this connection piece of the work, when you've networked, when someone's written you back or messaged on one of your posts, or like come out of the woodworks, like, oh my gosh, I've been following you for 3 years. Like, I just really need help. Enter connection. This is when like the real work gets done. And it doesn't have to be, tell me all about your life and your kids. I need to know everything about what's going on. One thing that I learned about myself is that I'm very, very good at helping people focus very finely tune into themselves. This journey is about them, not their kids, not their job, not their husband, not their wife, not anything around them. It's 100% about you. So number one, if you can focus on that person and that person alone, that connection will be stronger than if you try to do all the other stuff. Because you're their advocate, you're their coach, you're their cheerleader. That's it. I'm telling you guys, that is so powerful to have that kind of support in your life. So number one, that's something that I felt I was doing wrong. Because I wasn't like, how many kids do you have? What is your husband like? What's your daily life like? I didn't do any of that, but it wasn't important, right? In the beginning, it wasn't important. And I didn't realize that all that naturally happens later. Like, as you work together, as you sweat together, as you grow together, like all of that naturally happens. And so for me, my 100% focus was, what's your greatest obstacle in your health and fitness journey? We're going to fix that. That's it. And you guys, my business exploded. It was when I started adding all this other crap that just wasn't really my focus, that I thought I had to be doing to make my team look the way everybody else's did, that everything got messed up. Okay. So number one, make sure that you find a commonality. Make sure that you're really staying true to yourself, because there is more than one way to do this. And any way that's working is right. Any way that's working is right. Okay. The very last piece of this, with this connection piece, we're connecting with each other right now. Does anyone feel a little more connected to each other, to our community, to what's going on? Yeah. Like, words are awesome. They help us feel things. Emotion is a huge part of the connection process. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. And that's where this part becomes hard, right? So one thing that I really want you to do right now, this is the introspective part of this, is I want you to think about what is your current inner narrative about specifically connecting with other people. Is it negative? Is it positive? What I want you to do is I want you to write down maybe like what beliefs are holding me back in this category. What are the things that I say to myself, but I would never say out loud in this category about working with people in our field, like in this community, with our challengers? Like, what are you afraid of when it comes to connection in our business? And the more successful you get, there's a lot more things that you become afraid of. Let me tell you, that fear doesn't go away, it increases. You just get stronger and more able to manage yourself and how you're going to confront those things. Okay, so I want you to write down, I'm going to give us a few minutes of just quiet to write down maybe some of your toxic narratives in this category. And then I want you to kind of reframe them into something healthier. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes and then you can write it in the chat if you want to, and then we'll move on to this next section. Oh my gosh, Ash, I'm going to respond to your comment because that is so incredible. That comment, she said, sometimes my problem is making too much of a connection. I never get to the sell part. I need to find the middle ground. You guys, my invite power hour will transform that part for you. If there's any on my YouTube, go watch one. But for me, like, the sell is a huge part of the connection piece. Actually, what I really, truly, honestly believe, you guys, is when you're having that conversation and you're trying to invite someone, like if you aren't getting directly to the sale, you're beating around the bush because of your own personal insecurity. That has nothing to do with the other person. Like if you can't get there, that's on you, first of all. Okay. That's you just trying to be something more than you need to be for them. And it really is just birthed out of insecurity. It's just you not feeling confident enough to be like, let's get to the point. Right. And for me, it's like, I did that maybe for about 2 weeks as a new coach. I said way too much. And then I said way too little. Right. And then I found the perfect concoction. And that was just through making an idiot out of myself, burning bridges. Right. And like failure. That's really where that came from. And what I learned was I'm not going to be a coach specifically that beats around the bush. They are coming to you for a very specific reason. And the more on point you stay with that, A, the more credibility you have, B, the more respect they're going to have for you and listen. And 3, the stronger connection you're going to have with that person because you're not going to F around and enable them. If you're talking too much and not getting to the point, you're enabling, not empowering. That's a huge piece of being a really solid coach. Okay. What are some of you're never too old to make new relationships? I love that. That's so good. My self-limiting belief with connection is that I subconsciously believe that if I give someone my time, love, affection, that they somehow are going to take away from me or they are going to hurt me in some way. That is where you need to focus all of your personal development. If you ever wonder what personal development you should be doing, figure out what your toxic traits are with connection, and it will lead you to work that actually counts. I lose so many clients because of the loss of overconnection. If you're overconnecting, you're not actually creating a connection. You're not here to be someone's friend, right? Like you're here to be somebody different in their life that's already in their life now. And the way that you do that is to stand out quickly by not putting up with the BS, asking very direct, pointed questions so you can get to the point as quickly as possible and get them to a solution as quickly as possible. That's life-changing. Like that's transformation. That's what any coach, if you went into a gym, would do. You're overweight, you're overeating, here's how we're going to fix it. You're way too stressed, here's what you need, right? Like they're not like, tell me about your life. No, that stuff comes out when you're working out and they're like, think about your kids. Are you going to give up or are you going to keep going? Right? Like that's when that stuff comes out. So it's not that you don't get to do that stuff. It's just make that connection first that this is you and me. This is a you and me journey. You're not alone. I'm here. I got you. We're going to do this. You can borrow my strength as much as you can, and our blinders are going to be on and no one else matters except for you and me. That's it. Just think about how impactful that is, even just to hear it now. If I was like, you know what? Like nothing else matters. I'm going to get you where you want to go in this business and we're going to do it no matter what. You tell me your goal, I will get you there. Like you don't even have to think about it. Like we're just going to do it. Think about how that changes immediately your energy, your confidence. It's just a different kind of connection. That is the one that you need to establish first. It will help you so much. And that can happen quick. Like you can create that quickly and then all the other stuff comes quick too, right? Like, but in the beginning, like this first part of it, this connection piece is so key. Toxic narrative. I just yelled at my kids, but I'm telling prospects they can be more patient with their kids. I could write a whole book on that. But that is really, really good. Like imposter syndrome. I think that's also really good personal development. You guys, like this is the stuff that's going to work for you. It's not all the business books that you read. And it's not always the like, you can be a badass. Sometimes it's like, you have a real problem and that you need to fix. And here's what it is. And here's how to fix it. Like if you want to be able to connect with people and be more vulnerable, there's something there that's not allowing that. So figure that out. And guess what? Your life's going to be a lot happier and a lot healthier, right? If you do the right stuff. Okay. Let's see. Okay. This next part of it, this is kind of like digging a little deeper into connecting with yourself. So now you've kind of like got that big sort of, this is my wall, this is my obstacle out of the way. So now you've opened up, you're a little more vulnerable, you're a little more ready to connect with the process, right? And you're not going to have to do this every single time, right? Like this is, again, this power hour is specifically to kind of transform the way that you look at this process. So this is kind of a one-stop shop kind of power hour. You don't need to do this one over and over and over again, unless you need a good refresher, but that's the whole point. Like I want to help transform this piece of your business. I want you to leave this call and be very excited to go out and just try and make a real solid connection with someone that's productive and establish a relationship quickly so that you can help somebody in their health and fitness journey and just be their coach, not their therapist, not their friend, right? Not the person that's going to give them a discount or enable all of their behavior. Not that. But somebody that's going to be a really powerful force in their life. Okay. So this next part is really important. So it's really key to understand what things disconnect you, what things make you pull the plug, what things you're like, I'm just working, but I have no joy in this process. So understanding the things that disconnect you. So I'm going to give you a good few minutes to write through that. I wrote some examples up here. This is where we're at. Sorry, sometimes it's like kind of hard to see where we are. It's right here. We're right here. Connecting with yourself. So some of the things that create disconnection, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes. Lack of progress and results, I would say, is number one. And you can say that about your challengers and your coaches. If you aren't seeing income, progress, right? Like you're demotivated instantly, disengaged, disconnected. So lack of progress, varied schedules, like crazy schedules at home, fake or empty goals that you're setting that you think need to be set, but you actually don't have any connection to, right? Poor self-esteem or self-worth, poor choices, like making the same mistake over and over and over again, inauthentic persona that you put on or narratives that you speak that aren't actually the truth, right? There's a lot of things that create disconnection. What are those for you? And then if you're feeling brave, you can write your biggest one in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to give us a few minutes to think through this. Just going to read some of these because they're so good. Making the same mistakes leading to lack of results. You know what's interesting about that one is like, it's so easy to beat yourself up, but like, at least you're still trying is what I want to say. Like, it's when you stop trying that it's like, oh, now I'm like in real trouble. The way to stop doing the same things over and over is so tempting in our business specifically, especially with our community, because again, like they've given the formula, right? Like have a challenge group. Like there's really only one narrative that's being out there. So when you're really in this position, you really have to sit down and think to yourself, like, what do I really want my business to look like? Like, what do I want my community to look like? What do I want this brand to become? What do I want it to mean for people? And then when you just start executing on that and you think less about attracting business builders or challengers or selling challenge packs, and instead you think, you know what, I'm going to build up this community. Like I'm going to build this mission. I'm going to, and that becomes your focus. It sounds complicated. Actually, it doesn't sound easy. It sounds hard, and it is hard, but it's also very, very, very simple. Like it's your mission that's going to bring people in, not the product, right? It's the message, your belief. So really just lead with that, and you should start seeing some changes in the results. People pleasing, that's a huge one, especially in our business, because people get a lot of positive affirmation and reward here. I haven't had any signups for 4 months. My challengers seem unmotivated. And it's exhausting to motivate them all the time. That's because you can't. All you can do is mobilize them. If you can get them moving, they can motivate themselves. If they can't get moving, they're not your challenger anymore. Your challenger is a challenger when they're in motion. When they're not in motion, they're not being a challenger, right? Like, okay. The longer I go not having proof in rank, income, and coaches under me, I take less action. Your worth is not based on who's signing up under you. Like, reclaim your worth. Your value is within. That's it. Like, if you put it on anything outside of yourself, you're going to feel like a failure for the rest of your life. Imposter syndrome, number one. If you feel worse about yourself because of something someone else did, they have your worth in their hands. It's not in yours. That is like number one key work. Let's see, not producing income and having a major side business, low self-confidence, people pleaser, not sticking to healthy eating. So let me just tell you guys something really quick. When I became a coach, I was so sick of myself. I was so sick of myself. I was so tired of being in my own head. I was so tired of my own problems. I just wanted to set all that aside and focus on something productive. And this is when I fell in love with coaching, because it allowed me to focus on other people's problems, which sounds weird, but for me, it was extremely healing to start working with people who had the same self-limiting belief, who had the same problems, these same human conditions. They weren't original problems. And your problems are probably not original problems. They're just part of the human condition. And so when I started to critically think through how someone telling me they had low self-esteem, how to help rebuild that for them, when I had to critically think through that and then deliver some first steps there, man, you guys, did that start to heal my own crap quick. The longer you do it and the more invested you get into that process, you automatically start healing whether you want to or not. So start doing the work, start talking about some of this toxicity. That's what I did. I just started talking about these inner narratives. I started talking and posting and saying things about the stuff that I was feeling. And I found people who had these same problems and these same issues. And then I had to critically think through them because I was more motivated to help them than myself. And that's just the truth. That's where it was. And by helping other people, that gave me energy. That kept me going. It was this real tug and pull, this give and back and give back kind of, energy. And that's where I thrive in this business. But if you don't allow for that give back, give kind of relationship, and all you're doing is pouring and giving, but you're not actually doing any work or improving in any of these areas, double down on the personal development and make that your journey this year. To be vulnerable and speak on it out loud. I promise you will find people who need what you are delivering. I promise. Okay, so this next part of it is really identifying the things that connect you, right? That connective tissue that I just talked about, that connective piece of this is my chance to do something more productive with my mind, my mindset, my thoughts, right? My energy, all of this. I'm just going to focus on someone else for a minute and set myself aside. It was so powerful. So that is my number one connective piece. That is my connection. And I don't have any expectations attached to it anymore. I don't. I give for free. That's what makes me connected. That's why I'm join my Power Hours page. Here's my trackers. I don't care if you're on my team or not, because I don't, right? This is my connective piece. And so I want you to write that down. Like, what are the things that connect you, that keep you here? And give you a few minutes. I wish I could read all of these comments out loud. This is so good. My Power Hour page, Cheryl, is just on Instagram. It's just at Power Hours, OURS. It's just like when I post calls and stuff, so people can join if they want to. One thing I will say, and I do think this is really important too, with this connective piece, is really understanding your strength. I think my greatest strength, and perhaps my greatest downfall, is I am really good at authenticity. What you see is what you get. Like, I don't change around other people or circumstance. Like, I am who I am, and I know who I am. And I always have, regardless of how good I feel about myself in the moment or whatever, I still know who I am. And you guys, that is one of the most grounding, powerful things that I've discovered is kind of unique. A lot of people don't even know who they are. And I attract a lot of people like that because I think that they are attracted to sort of that grounded authenticity, right? So if you think like, oh my gosh, I struggle being authentic, like that's okay, right? Like, what's your other strength? What is your strength though? What do you know for sure about yourself that you can lead with? Is it your positive attitude? Like, think about what people say about you, right? Like, think about what people have said about you your whole life, like where they think your value lies. I think that's important. And I'm talking about like the negative stuff. I'm talking about the positive stuff only. Okay, let's preface that. Only negative or positive comments here. But it's important to understand your strength. And sometimes it's really hard to find. Like, sometimes you don't know what that is yet. But one thing I've always known is I know who I am. And nothing is going to change that. I know what I believe in from a moral standpoint. I know where my values lie. I know my priorities, right? I know my flaws and my faults and my weaknesses. Like, if they were standing in a crowd of 1 billion people, I could be like, there it is, there it is, there it is. Like, I know exactly where my weakness is, but I also know a couple of my strengths. And I lean on those a lot. And I think that that's really important. So that's a really big connective piece as well, is just understanding that. So you can lead with that, because your strength is going to attract people who want more of that. So if you can even identify a pattern in your business like that, that's like, oh my gosh, I always attract people like this. Whatever the opposite of that is probably one of your strengths. Right? Whether that's authentic or not, I don't know, because that's just how you're personifying online, right? And so that's another question. But that's important to kind of think through. So these connective pieces, what keeps you connected? This is the stuff that you're going to fall back on when you're feeling disconnected, because it's really easy to get disconnected in our business. Sometimes I like to think about our Beachbody business as like one of those sockets that like you put the plug in and it falls out. It's like a super old plug and you're like, why won't this just stay in there? Like at my parents' house, there's a plug that I try to plug my computer into and it falls out, like just at the slightest touch. If somebody breathes by it, it falls out of the wall. Sometimes that's what our Beachbody business feels like. And you got to like get the duct tape out and like tape that sucker to the wall in order for it to stay in. That is going to be those things that create connection for you. Okay. And here's one last part. And then we're going to do, for this last 20 minutes, we're going to take all this and put it together. And I want to just see if there's a difference. Okay. When we do the work, when we do the actual post today. But the last piece of this is, what are your important stories? Because I know that this is like a vulnerable area. And in order for real connection to happen for you, I'm not talking about for the people that you're trying to connect with. I'm talking about for you, you have to be vulnerable. And you can do this. One of the first steps of learning this and getting more comfortable with it is understanding your important stories and then thinking how you can share them. So what are those stories for you that you don't talk about? What are the experiences that you have that you know could help someone else, but they're either so personal or TMI or whatever it is, right? That you don't share them. What are those stories? Just write them down. Think about the different experiences in your life that you've had. I love that, Dr. Alma. That's amazing. My two little granddaughters. So sweet. Okay. We're going to move to this next piece. So when you're thinking about all this stuff that you just thought about, like your important stories, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, right? Like what keeps you connected, what kind of disconnects you. You've kind of got like this little formula now of stuff that's just kind of like sitting here. And now I want you to think about like, how could I share some of this? How can I share the things that make me feel disconnected? Because I guarantee those things are what make other people feel disconnected. And sometimes they can connect with that, right? These stories, these important stories. What I want you to think through with this, when you're thinking about how can I share these to connect with people more, to help people more with the experiences that I've been through, really what I want you to think through is what your takeaway was. What was my lesson? What did I learn through this experience? Because that's really the narrative and that's really how you share it, right? You guys all know, you hear this all the time. You're going to hear it at Summit because Kendra Hall is going to be our keynote speaker. She is a storyteller. That is her passion. That is her joy. She loves telling stories. And it's because stories connect people, right? Like the one thing that I say all the time is facts are facts, emotions are relative. You can have someone who had completely different stories in life, right? Or telling you a story, and you can feel it. You may not relate to the facts of what the situation is, like, oh my gosh, I've never had that happen to me before. But you're feeling all of the feelings that they're emoting, right? That's why stories are so important, because the lessons that come from them, right? The perspective that come from them, the experience that comes out of them is really what is so transformational and such a connective piece. That's why we're always like, share your story, share your why, right? Because it's not necessarily, and that's also why we always say, like, you don't have to have this rags to riches story. You don't have to have this like 300-pound transformation. You don't have to have like this mom bod to bikini IFBB pro before and after picture. Like that doesn't matter. Do you know why? Because people don't connect to those facts. They connect to the emotion behind it, because emotion is relative. Every one of us knows what anger feels like, what impatience feels like, right? What hopefully joy and happiness feels like, what sadness feels like. We all know what these emotions feel like. And so stories can really pull that out of people, and emotion is necessary to mobilize people. There has to be a connected emotion behind what you're doing. Think about it. Anything you've ever transformed in your own life, where did it start? With an emotion. There may be like facts attached to it, but I'm telling you guys, the emotions are our guides. They are there to help us survive. That's why we have them. And it's so important to not only be able to understand them and tap into them better, but also like reach other people that way. So it might sound very complicated, but right now, what I want you to do for the last 10 minutes of this call is I want you to make a post. I want you to create a post now for the day. And I want you to draw from all this stuff. Your number one goal is connection. I want you to try to connect with other people. Okay, so that means sharing one of your important stories. That could be sharing that limiting belief that you identified. It can be identifying the healthy narrative that came out of that and sharing the solution, right? Giving that for free. How you approached a problem in your life and how applying a solution helped you, and then the end result of that. It can be that story that you're telling. It can be just keep the common plan in mind, right? Like we're all here to survive, and we're all just trying to get home at the end of the day, whatever you think that is. We're all born and we all die, right? Like those are connective facts. So when you really think about that, everybody here is just trying to do the same thing. We're all doing the same thing here, right? So when you go to really work on this connection piece in your business, honestly, like I recommend doing pure connection work for an extended period of time. Like do your networking, do your connecting, do your inviting, but like really focus in on this connection piece for the next little bit and just see how this transforms your business. See how it transforms your mind. Like pay attention to what comes up for you in this process. For me, a lot of very uncomfortable things came up for me. It was very, very, very challenging to learn how to let people connect with like me, right? And like feel connected to them at the same time. So this particular post, we're going to work on it for 10 minutes because I want it to be good. Like I want you to really put some time in it. Okay. And then we're going to end. The rest of the stuff is just like little connection activities, but we kind of ran out of time. So let's focus on this post and then we will And you could do it on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you want to. 2 more minutes and then we're gonna kind of end. If you are done with your post, what did you write about? Did you find yourself like posting with more ease? Or did this like totally full stop you? It's important to note which reaction you had. Money, I love that. People have very complicated relationships with money. I never realized that until I was long into my adulthood. I mean, you always like think like people are either good with it or they're not kind of thing. Like, that, but like people have very complicated relationships with money, especially when you start to coach people and like teach them how to make money. And you realize like, oh, there's a lot of things here. Like, I also have a great relationship with money, just so you guys know. Maybe that's why I like love the business part of this. I love making money. It's like something I've loved doing since I was young. I think it's super fun. It's just been a fun thing for me, which I realize is a privilege now. I didn't realize that before, to even have that ability to think that money was fun. But that's interesting. I would love to read that post. You should tag me on it. All my best posts come with tears. I love that. Okay, so listen, if you guys had a full stop and like a lot came up for you and now you feel like a little more disabled, this is probably an area of work that's pretty intense for you. And what I recommend doing is leaning into that a little bit and just understanding like where that difficulty is really lying, because it probably started long ago in your life, right? When you really look at it, this is what I tell my kids all the time that are like afraid to talk to people. I say, just look at the person and think, that's somebody's grandma, that's somebody's dad, that's somebody's brother, that's somebody's son. Like, we're all just people, right? And when you can really humanize the person that you're talking to, it changes things. It's when you're looking at them with an expectation where it gets messed up, where you're looking at them like, oh, this is my next challenge pack. This is my next 2 points. This is my next challenger. She's going to be my next coach, right? That stuff is so incredible for you to do when you have your business cap on. You have to be able to do both. I understand where these people fit into this world, and I understand where these people fit into this world. But at the end of the day, she's still a mom. Like, she needs me. I'm her coach. This is about her and I. That's it. What does she want? One of the more powerful things, and I think with coaching specifically, and I don't know if there's any men on here. I'm sure there's women on here that aren't moms. That's fine. Like, I actually did not relate to motherhood for a really long time either. Like, even when I was a mom, I was like, this is wild. But either way, women in general take on everything so much. So when someone has their 100% focus just on you, and they're only here for you and showing up for you and being like, what do you want to do with your life? I don't think I'd ever had someone ask me that before. Like, what do you want to do? I ask myself that all the time, right? But sometimes, like, you are their permission, like you are that validation, you are that affirmation, you are that person, one person in their life that can give them the one thing that they need to succeed. And I think 100%, I still to this day will double down on this a million times. The most powerful we ever are and the most impact we will ever have is in that first invite conversation that we have with that person. Because that's the only time, you guys, I'm telling you, that you are actually going to be able to mobilize them in a way that could potentially transform their life. You are that mediator to that next step of, we're going to do something very different here, right? Whether they like become a challenger and like fall on and off the wagon all the time from there on out, you got them on that wagon. You got them into this community. You got them into this place where they can fail and come back and fail and come back. Instead of jump around to every tiny quick fix there is. You fixed something there. Even if the pattern is the same, they now have stability. You understand? Like, the most important part of this process is that invitation, because that is where you have the most impact. And that's why I love the Invite Power Hour, which is the one that I'm going to do next. So if you want to learn my invite process and get better at that part, now you've got the connection piece of it, right? And just imagine, you guys, if you could take this connected feeling into your challenger's journey. Like, we spent 1 hour together. I know nothing about your situation, your family life, your jobs, the stress you're going through, like, but I know already. I know already at the same time, right? We all go through the same things. I know what emotions are relative in the lives of other women because that's who I am, right? And again, the facts of those situations are different. The scale of those things are different, but I get it. Like, you don't have to explain anything to me. I understand. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing, to just be able to show up with each other and be like, I got you. It doesn't matter. I got you. Like, just really take that with you from this call. And again, the number one gift that you can get from this Connection Power Hour is understanding that anytime you feel disconnected, the way back is to leaning into the reason you came here, and that is to help someone else. Pour your energy into just giving for free, helping people, showing up online, and starting a conversation with zero expectations. If you start your day like that, you guys, every day you're going to find more joy. You're going to get more comfortable talking to people. You're going to start looking for ways to connect with them deeper and to create that bond, right? Where they're going to be like, I trust her. When I'm ready, I'm going to go to her. That's who I'm going to go to, because I know I've seen her online. I've seen him talking about all this stuff for years and years and years, but I never felt connected enough to really take that step. But now I do. Right? Like, it's awesome. So I hope this was helpful in some way. I know that this call is very different than every other power hour that we have. This is something that I'm passionate about, really teaching coaches early on or far into their careers, because I really do think that this piece, while it can bring a lot of turbulation because it's emotion connected, it can also bring a lot of joy. And this is the piece where you get to like really control that. You get to control whether it's going to bring you a lot of joy, and you get to cut off the parts that don't, right? And you don't really get to do that in some of the other business activities that we do. So really dialing it in and understanding where your energy comes in this space and where it gets depleted, and then really just honoring yourself and other people and that commitment you made to helping someone else in this specific space. I just think the healthier and happier you're going to be in your business. So I will see you guys in a couple weeks. I'll post this one on my YouTube. It looks like this one was helpful for people, so I'll post it up there. I'm going to post the tracker one more time, and then I will see you guys in a couple weeks.